Welcome you all to the course Database Management System. Myself, Mohammad Asifuddin Mundal, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Narula Institute of Technology, and this is lecture number 22 of this course. These are the topics which I am going to cover during my lecture. In my previous lecture, I have discussed the guideline. Specifically, I have discussed three guidelines which we need to follow while designing a relational database. In this lecture, I will discuss the guideline 4. So if we follow these 4 guidelines, then we will come up with a good relational database design. Next, I will discuss about the spurious tuples. Then I will give an overview of normalization. Here I will give just an overview of normalization. And next lecture onwards, I will elaborately discuss about the concept of normalization. And last, I will discuss about the different keys used in database. So, relational database design guideline 4. So, I have already discussed 3 guidelines in my previous lecture. So, if we maintain these 4 guidelines, then we will come up with a good relational database design. If you remember, the guideline 1 states that don't combine the attributes from multiple entity type into a single relation. That means while designing a relational database, don't combine the attributes from multiple entity type into a single relation. For example, go to the next slide. For example, suppose we have to create a database for storing the employee information as well as their corresponding project information in which they are assigned. And suppose someone has designed the database like that way. That means the person creates a relation, a single relation whose name is emp underscore proj. So it's a single relation or single table which consists of these attributes. SSN is the social security number, P number is the project number, hours means the number of hours a particular employee works, employee name, P name is project name, and P location. And here SSN and the P number as a combined, these are the primary key. Now if you look at the table, the relation is violating the guideline 1 because if you look at it, then you will be able to find that that particular relation combines the attribute from multiple entity. For example, here SSN is the social security number, employee name, and hours. These three attributes basically belongs to the entity employee, whereas P number, P name, and P location, these three attributes belongs to another entity project. That means in a single relation, we are combining the attributes from multiple entities. So this is violating the guideline. So what we have to do, we have to decompose that particular relation into two sub-relations. So if we breaking up the relation, then if someone breaks up the relation like that way, emp underscore locs, which contains employee name and p location as a combination, they are treated as a primary key. And another sub-relation is emp underscore proj1, which includes SSN P number as a combined their primary key, hours, P name, and P location. If someone breaks the base relation emp underscore proj like that way, then whether this breaking up is perfect breakup or not a perfect breakup, we have to discuss that thing only here. Now, if we break the table emp underscore project like that way, then we can say that that breakup is a good breakup or the perfect breakup if after performing the natural join between these two tables, if we will get back the original relation, then we can say that the breakup is perfect breakup. Again, I am repeating, after breaking up the relation, we have what we have to do, we have to join emp underscore locs and emp underscore proj1. That means we have to perform the join operation between these two relations. after joining, if we get back all the data which belongs to that original base relation, then we can say that this is perfectly breakup relation, and that means that design is good design. But after performing the join operation, if we will not get back the original data which was belong to that particular relation, base relation, then that kind of join is known as lossy join decomposition, and then we can say that that breakup is not a perfect breakup. This is not a good breakup. So again, I am repeating, after performing the natural join operation between these two relations, if we will come up with all the set of data which is same as the same data as it belongs to the original base relation, then we say that that kind of decomposition is lossless join decomposition. And if it is lossless join decomposition, then we can say that the breaking up the base relation like that is a good breakup and good database, good relational database design it is. But if after performing the natural join operation, if we will not get back the original data which was present in the base relation, it may happen that after performing the join, we have come up with much more data than it was present in the base relation. Then that means that the extra bit of data which is generated is actually erroneous data, and this extra erroneous data is known as spurious tuple, and that kind of decomposition is known as lossy join decomposition. Why it is called lossy join decomposition? Because after decomposing the base relation into two sub relation, and again and after decomposition, if we join these two sub relation, we are not getting back the original relation. Means the information, some information are lost after breaking up the relation, and we'll come up with extra set of data which was not present in the base relation. And the extra bit of information, the extra set of information which is erroneous data which was not present in the base relation is known as spurious tuple, and that kind of breakup is known as lossy join decomposition. And if it is lossy join decomposition, then we can conclude that the breakup is not a good or perfectly breakup. You can go back to the previous slide. So we have to break the relation so that after performing the join operation, we can get back the original data which was present in the base relation. So based on this, we can create a guideline number 4. It states that in a relational schema design, it should be designed so that they can be joined with equality condition on attributes that are either primary key or foreign key in a way such that no spurious tuples are generated. So what does it mean? While designing the relational schema, it should be designed such a way that the relation should be joined. Means relation should be part. The relation should be joined means it can be natural join operation between the relation based on equality condition on the attributes that are either primary key or foreign key. Means we have to perform the join operation between the two relations based on a particular attribute which is either a primary key or foreign key. And if we do that, if we join the two relations based on equality condition on the attribute which is either primary key or foreign key, then it guarantees that no spurious tuple will be generated. So this is guideline number 4. Let me explain with an example. So this is the example. Suppose R is the relation with 3 attributes A, B, C, and this is the set of data. And suppose we have break up the relation R into R1 and R2. R1 contains 2 attributes A and B. R2 contains B and C. And suppose The common attribute is B, and we are performing, this symbol is the natural join operation. That means we are performing the natural join operation between R1 and R2, and we are definitely natural join operation is going to be performed based on common attribute B. And what the guideline 4 says that while joining two relation, the joining must be done based on equality condition on the attribute which is either primary key or foreign key of any one of the relation. Suppose here, if you look at the table, the common attribute is B, and B, the guideline says that B should be, the common attribute here is B. So B should be either primary key of R1 or B is a foreign key of R2. Means the common attribute be either primary key or foreign key in any one of the relation. But if you look at, first if you look at in relation R2, B is not a primary key here, because 2 is because the domain of B is not unique. Domain of B is not unique. Domain means this set of value. So 2, the 2 is repeating. Here is the value is 2, here value is 2, here again value is 2. Similarly, 0 is repeating. So the domain is not unique. So B is not a primary key. And B, suppose it is not a foreign key also. That means in performing the joining between R1 and R2 based on common attribute B, and B is not a primary key as well as not a foreign key. That means it's violating the guideline 4. So what will happen? We'll come up with a relation with a set of data with the extra bit of data, and extra bit of data was not present in the original relation. That means after performing the natural join operation, we have come up with a set of data which was not present in the actual relation. Rather, it produced extra bit of data, extra set of data, and this extra set of data is not present in the original relation R. So this extra set of data is known as phantom records. It also known as spurious tuple. If you look at natural join means it will retain the information from R1 R2 based on the common attribute, based on equality on common attribute B. So if you look at the first record 1, 2, value of B is 2. So here is the matching is there. So 1, 2, 2, 3 will be there. So 1, 2, 3 is there. Next 1, 2, again this record is matching, value of B is matching. So 1, 2, 4, that will be there. Now for 1, 2, for that record the value of B is 2, but here the value of B is 0, not matched, so it will not be there. Again next record 0, value of B is 0, value of B is 2, not matched. Now here the value of B is 2, the value of B is 2 same, so 1, 2, 3 will be there, already it is there, it's not a problem. Now next 1, 0, so value of B is 0. Here value of B2 not matched, it is not matched. Value of B is 0, so matching. So 1, 0, 4 will be there. It is. Next value of, for that record, value of B is 0. So this is matched. So 1, 0, 1. So we are getting 1, 0, 1. Now the point here is that the 1, 0, 1, which is marked in red, if you look at the relation R, 1, 0, 1 is not present in the base relation. So this is the extra bit of record, extra row which is generated after performing the natural join. So this extra record which was not present in the base relation is known as phantom records or spurious tuple. And that means after performing the natural join operation, we are getting a relation with a set of data which is not exactly same as the data set in the R. So from here we can conclude that this breakup, the breakup of R into R1 and R2 is not a good breakup. So that means our designing of that database is not okay, it's not good, it's bad design. We are come up with a wrong set of data, erroneous data. Why it has happened? Because it violates guideline 4. And what is, why it is violating? Because we are performing the join operation between R1 and R2 based on equality condition of the attribute B, B is the common attribute. We are performing the join operation based on equality condition on the common attribute B, which is neither a primary key nor a foreign key in any one of the relation. If B was a primary key of any one of the relation, or B is a foreign key in any one of the relation R1 R2, then we will be able to get back to the original relation. But here B is neither a primary key nor a foreign key in any one of the relation R1 R2. That is why it's violates guideline 4. That is why it produces a relation with extra bit of record, extra set of record, and this extra set of record is known as spurious tuple. So, while designing the database, we should follow all these 4 guidelines. If we follow all these 4 guidelines, then we will come up with the good database design. Next topic is the normalization. Now, while designing a relational database, first of all, we have to follow guideline 1, then we have to follow guideline 2, guideline 3, and lastly, we have to follow guideline 4. And then, after these are the preliminary steps while designing a database. Once we follow these 4 guidelines, we have come up with a relational database, set of table will be there. And then after that, we have to apply the concept of normalization. Means we are following 4 guidelines, what we have stated already. So following these 4 guidelines, we will be able to create a set of table, a set of relation. So multiple table may be there for a particular database. Now after that, we have to apply that concept of normalization. Now, what is normalization? Normalization is a process of normalizing the relationship among the dataset. Also, or it can be termed as it's the process of decomposing the unsatisfactory bad relation by breaking up their attributes into smaller relations. And the objective of normalization, why we need to apply the normalization. Basically, normalization is a technique by which we can break up the original relation into some smaller relation so that we can simplify the relationship among the dataset. Now, the objective of normalization is that it helps us to reduce the data redundancy which appears in database. First, second, normalization helps us to reduce different kind of anomalies present in the database. Anomalies means it try to reduce the insertion anomaly, deletion anomaly, and updation anomaly. Again, I am repeating, the objective of normalization is that first of all, it reduces the data redundancy which appears in a database. Second, it try to reduce different type of anomalies like insertion anomaly, deletion anomaly, and updation anomaly. And these all anomalies are already discussed in my previous lecture. So normalization, we can say that it's a technique by which we can reduce the data redundancy in a relation, by which we can reduce insertion, deletion, and updation anomalies present in a relation. That means if we apply the normalization, then we will come up with a good relational database design. And normalization, basically how it can be performed. Basically, normalization is performed based on functional dependency. Those are defined on a particular relation. Now, what is functional dependency? How normalization is going to be applied? All this will be covered from my next video onwards. And now what is normal form? Now, different kinds of normal forms are there in normalization. 1NF is the first normal form, 2NF is second normal form, 3NF is third normal form, then BCNF voice code normal form, then 4NF, then 5NF. So different types of normal forms are there, and all this will be covered in my next lecture. And each normal form have their own criteria. Based on that criteria, we can check whether a particular relation or whether a particular table belongs to that normal form or not. We'll check all these things from my next lecture onwards. And as I have already told, normalization is carried out in practice. In practice means while this process is carried out while designing a relational database in real life, so that the resulting design or the resulting relation or the resulting table are of high quality and meet the desirable properties, and so that we can store and retrieve the data in a database in an efficient manner. And broadly, if we say that the objective of normalization is to try to reduce the data redundancy as well as reduce the defined kinds of anomalies which may generally present in any relational database. And in generally in industry, the database designer who designed the database need not normalize to the highest possible normal form, means up to 5NF. In basically in real life, what we can see that we may normalize the base relation up to 3NF, means 1NF, 2NF and 3NF up to that 3NF or this up to for BCNF. This is almost perfect. No need to normalize it to much more higher level, means 4NF, 5NF like that. So up to 1NF, up to 1, 2 and 3NF, up to 3NF, if we normalize the table, if we normalize the relation up to 3NF or up to BCNF, then also it will produce a good relational database. And consequently, another term is the denormalization. As the name implies, it's just opposite of normalization, means we are joining the smaller number of subrelation which satisfies the higher normal form. Then this higher normal form subrelation can be joined together and come up with a smaller number of base relation which is in lower normal form. Generally, in normalization, we are actually breaking up the base relation into multiple smaller number of subrelation. The base relation was in one normal form, means 1NF, and then we break up the relation into smaller number of subrelation, and at last the subrelation are is in higher normal form, means they may be 3NF, CNF or 4NF. And in case of denormalization, the subrelations are in either 3NF, BCNF or 4NF. But in denormalization, what we are doing, we are combining all these subrelations to get back to the base relation, which is in either in 1NF or in any lower number form. The next topic is key. A key in DBMS is basically an attribute or set of attributes which helps us to identify a particular record or particular tuple in a relation. And DBMS has the following 7 types of key. For example, the first one is super key, primary key, candidate key, alternate key, and foreign key. Now, a super key is a group of single or multiple keys which identifies row in a table. That means super key is a attribute or combination of attribute by which we can uniquely identify a particular tuple or particular record in a table. For example, if you consider that relation STUDID, student ID, roll number, first name, last name, and email. Suppose student ID is the unique. Generally, student ID is unique, and roll number, it may be it is unique within a department, but not across the department. But student ID is unique across the department. Then first name, last name, last name is not a unique. Email, now email is also unique. That email attribute, the value, the domain is unique. So in the above given example, if you try to form a key, so what are the key may be there? One key is STUDID, objective key. What is key? Key is a attribute or combination of attribute by which you can uniquely identify a particular record. So a stud ID, this one can be considered as a key because with the help of this attribute you can uniquely identify a particular record. For example, if you say select a record whose stud ID is 1, then it will select only that record only, first record. Now if someone says select a select record whose first name is Tom, now it may happen that more than two students have same name, more than two students have same name Tom, then what happens? In that case, it will select all the record whose first name is Tom. So first name or last name cannot be treated as a key or super key. They cannot be treated as a super key because with the help of first name or with the help of a last name, you cannot uniquely identify a particular record. So stud ID can be considered as a super key. Now, if you combine stud ID comma first name, then also with the help of these two attributes, it also able to uniquely identify a particular record. So in that case, stud ID comma first name as a combination, they can be a super key. Similarly, if you combine stud ID, then first name comma last name, this combination also uniquely identify a particular record. Similarly, stud ID comma first name comma last name comma roll number, this also forms a super key. Similarly, stud ID comma first name comma last name comma roll number comma email, this also forms a super key. That means by default, a super key can be consist of all the attributes of a particular relation. Now, tell me whether email can be a super key. Yes, email is unique. No one have same email. So with the help of email, we can uniquely identify particular record. So email can be standalone a super key, stud ID a super key, as well as combination of all the attributes in a table. So for example, email comma last name is also a super key. Email comma last name first name is also a super key. So in a relation, we may have many more super keys are there. The next topic is candidate key. The minimal super key is known as candidate key. Minimal super key is known as candidate key. Consider the same example. Stud ID comma first name is a super key because with the help of stud ID and first name, we can uniquely identify a particular record. For example, select a record whose stud ID is 1 and first name is Tom. It definitely select that particular record. Even if two students having a same name Tom, then also it will select a particular record. Why? The other Tom have a stud ID which is not definitely 1. The another student whose name is Tom, stud ID should be different, not 1, because stud ID is unique. So stud ID comma first name is a super key. Now, what about candidate key? Whether this one is a candidate key? Definitely not. Why? Because candidate key is minimal super key is known as candidate key. What does it mean? If you remove any one of the attribute from this one, if you remove any one of the attribute from this one, and still if able to uniquely identify a record, then we can say that it is not a candidate key. For example, stud ID comma first name. Suppose remove the attribute first name. Suppose remove the attribute first name. Now check whether only stud ID is able to uniquely identify a record. Yes. Just remove the first name. Only stud ID is there. And only with the help of stud ID, still we can able to uniquely identify a particular record. So this attribute, this set of attribute is not a minimal super key. Means in that case, in that attribute, extra attributes are present, which is not at all required. So it is not a minimal super key. That is why this is not a candidate key. And what about stud ID? Only stud ID. It's this first of all. Stud ID is a super key, yes, because with the help of stud ID, we will be able to uniquely identify a particular record. Next question: whether stud ID is a candidate key. For a super key, to be a candidate key, the super key must be minimal. So how to check? If you remove any one of the attribute, here only one attribute is there. So if you remove the attribute stud ID, no attribute is there. So you cannot uniquely identify a record. That means this is a minimal set of attribute present in that super key. So that is why it is termed as candidate key. The next topic is candidate key. Next topic, continuation of candidate key. A table may have more than one candidate key. One of the candidate key can be assigned as a primary key. Again, go back to the previous slide. In that example, stud ID is a candidate key. Similarly, email is also a candidate key. So in our relation, stud ID and email, these two are the candidate key. So this relation has two candidate key. One is stud ID, other one is the email. So a table may have more than one candidate key. One of the candidate key can be assigned as a primary key, and primary keys has already been discussed. So one of the candidate key we have to assign as a primary key, and the rest of the candidate key is known as secondary key. Next, the topic is the prime attribute. The attribute which is a part of candidate key is known as prime attribute. So prime attribute means the attribute which is a part of candidate key is known as prime attribute. Suppose the relation, suppose stud ID comma first name. Suppose stud ID comma first name, assume that this is the candidate key, for example. Though student ID comma first name is not a candidate key in my previous example, but for the sake of example, assume that. So if you consider the last name, whether it's the prime attribute or not. So suppose assume that as I said, stud ID comma first name is a composite attribute, though it is not. But assume that is a candidate key. So if you consider the last name, whether last name is a prime attribute or not, how to tell? You have to check whether the attribute last name is part of this candidate key or not. Obviously, last name is not a part of this candidate key. So last name is not a prime attribute. So last name is a non-prime attribute. So the attribute which is not a part of candidate key is known as non-prime attribute. And suppose whether first name is a prime attribute or not. Yes, first name is a prime attribute because first name is a part of this candidate key. Similarly, stud ID is a prime attribute or not? Yes, stud ID is a part of candidate key. So stud ID is a prime attribute. And this is the references we go to for